And in a matter of 24 hours, Kyiv has changed. Russian forces carried out a bombing attack on the national capital, and this bombing attack was carried out from multiple sides. There were missile strikes, there were ballistic missiles that were used, there was air-to-ground firing that was carried out, air-to-ground bombs were dropped. We are told this was a multi-pronged offensive on vital assets and vital points in Kyiv. The aim was to take out strategic points and introduce choke points for the Ukrainian army, for the Russian army to ultimately move in. The aim of the Russian forces, and many of them now are at the outskirts of the national capital, Kyiv, their aim is to ensure they advance to Kyiv as quickly as possible, demilitarize the country and enforce a regime change. Take a look at two images that we are putting out on your television screen. Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, before and after the bombing. And the situation in Kyiv and almost across Ukraine is extremely alarming at this point. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, he has said his country can hold out maximum for the next 98 hours and no more. He has sought international assistance. He said, who is here? And he's asked this question in a public address. Who is standing with Ukraine today? No lip service, no sympathy. All he wants is support. But is that hard support in terms of hard action or sanctions against Russia coming Ukraine's way? It doesn't appear to be happening just as yet, though lip sympathy has been paid and lip service has been paid by multiple countries. Where are those hard sanctions that people in Ukraine are looking for? That doesn't seem to be happening, at least not just as yet. Let me get to this situation on ground. Russian forces are advancing from multiple sides, multiple explosions because of missile strikes. From Russia rocked Kyiv, Ukrainian forces battled Russian forces advancing towards the city. Now, according to ministers, the attacks were carried out both by cruise and ballistic missiles. Ukraine has also claimed that it has shot down two Russian fighter jets, two Russian Su-30 fighters. A series of missile strikes took place in an area that has multiple high-rise buildings, increasing fear of casualties. The images that you see on your television screen are horrifying. The aftermath of the missile strikes. Ukraine's president Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that capital Kyiv is currently under siege. Russian forces are either at the doorstep or in some pockets they've already entered Kyiv. Zelensky also warned that Russian armed forces would seize Kyiv in the next 96 hours. And this, he fears, is the Iron Curtain coming up once again, reminding the world, reminding especially Europe, that Soviet Union was a threat. He's warning Western Europe. He says the Iron Curtain is coming down once again.
Наявною у нас інформацією ворог позначив мене як ціль номер 1, мою родину як ціль номер 2. Вони хочуть знищити Україну політично, знищивши главу держави. Маємо інформацію про те, що у Київ зайшли диверсійні групи ворога. Тому я дуже прошу киян, будьте уважними, дотримуйтесь правил комендантської години. Я залишаюсь в урядовому кварталі разом з усіма. Разом з усіма, хто необхідний для роботи центральної влади.
The images that we are about to show you are horrifying. We urge viewer discretion. This is a ground report filed by Jan Huzar. Now, this is the situation. What do you see on ground? You see a number of missile strikes taking place and the aftermath of those missile strikes. Of course, Russia's aim was to take out the entire air defense of Ukraine. In some instances, Ukraine succeeded in shooting down the incoming missiles. We bring you this ground report from Kyiv.
So it's a big building of flats, right? And this is the ground floor, let's say, or the first floor. And there was a guy inside. It's a sleeping room, this one, with a balcony. And there was a guy sleeping inside when the rocket landed here. And he's fine, but in a shock. But it happened when he was asleep. A rocket landed on his balcony. and destroyed like part of this. Now people are evacuating. You see all these cars are waiting. People are taking their belongings. You know, see all these cars here are people coming and going and just taking all their clothes, taking all their belongings and escaping. I cannot even imagine what it feels like to be sleeping and you wake up and this happens at your home. When especially Russians are saying that they are only hitting military targets. And I don't think that this looks like a military target. This is a civilian residential area in eastern part of Kyiv.
And mass evacuation is taking place. People in thousands fleeing Kyiv at this point of time. Buildings have been targeted. Locals say residential buildings have also been targeted. And the question they're asking is, when the Russians are saying that they will only go after military targets, why are rockets falling in civilian areas? And these rockets and missiles and projectiles falling on civilian targets have forced people to take shelter either in bomb shelters or even in metro stations, going several feet below the earth's surface to save themselves. There is a paucity of water, electricity, and of course, as some residents out of sheer fear say, they are breathless, there is lack of oxygen, but then this is the only way to survive. We bring you another ground report.
I'm Maria Pisarenko reporting live from Kyiv, Ukraine, and now we are in bomb shelter beneath one of the residential houses in the city center, in the governmental quarters of Kyiv. The situation is the following. From 4 o'clock in the morning, there were attacks of Russian aircrafts on the civilians in Kyiv, and since then we here in the city center can hear a lot of far away sounds of explosions. The official reports say that this is Air Force defense systems are working, so don't be afraid, but please keep sitting in the bomb shells. So now I will give you a little tour, so to say excursion in this bomb shelter and show how everything is done here. So we can go further and see how people are doing here. So there are small mattresses on improvised chairs, also food put here, and people have been sitting here from 5 o'clock in the morning, right after these loud explosions have been heard in the city center. So not all of them really want to talk or show their faces, because the situation now is really tense and everybody understands that the worst probably is yet to come, because the reports are very disturbing about the group of Russian military dressed as Ukrainian military trying to get into the city center. So the mood here is not really pleasant, and I won't show the faces of people, just I will show how the stuff is organized. So there are like shelves where we put, for example, our belongings or backpacks with food and some additional supplies that we need. We are lucky because this bomb shelter is one which is in pretty nice condition, so there is even kind of improvised fridge for food, and I guess it all goes from the times of Soviet Union, because there is some letters are also kind of like written in the font which was used in the Soviet Union. So this is the one room. People are sitting here and people are also sleeping. And here is another room. You can see again these filters for the air here, and the conditions are not great, but some people have been sleeping here for the night, because other people from Kyiv in Kyiv are using metro stations as bomb shelters, and some of them use bomb shelters if they really have these bunkers beneath their houses. So what else can I show you? The situation here is really pretty tense because people are not only upset, but they are shocked by what is happening here in Kyiv. The understanding that the war is on is still not the case for many of us sitting here in the bomb shelter, and a lot of people understand that they're just, wasting their time because some person decided that Kyiv should be attacked, that Ukraine should be attacked. So from time to time we have the opportunity to leave the shelter, to stand outside, to breathe some air, for example, and also to listen to some situation in the air, so we can, standing here, hear the distant sounds of explosions going far behind. So, and people are coming here in the bomb shelter more and more during this morning. So it's now only 9 o'clock Kyiv time, and more and more people are really coming to stay here, to sit in the bomb shelter, and to spend this very worrying time. So you see, from time to time they come, they leave. We can hear the sound of air alarm going also from time to time, and people are leaving, then returning, then again leaving. So, and right now as we speak, you can hear the sounds of explosions. So that's the situation, and so you see people are talking now that everybody is alarmed, and the police outside the street is also alarmed about the situation with a group of Russians dressed as Ukrainian military. So the situation really doesn't get any better, and we are still advised to keep sitting here in this bomb shelter and waiting. The waiting is the only thing we can do now. So that's that for the report from the bomb shelter. I'm Maria Pasarenko reporting live from Kyiv about Russian invasion happening right now in the center of Europe.
And everything around me here in this place is shut. There is apprehension, there is fear in the air. There is an eerie calm, almost as if there's this dread that Russian forces will be here any time. You can hear these explosions still going off in the background, and that is because intense artillery shelling is on at the borders. Now, because there's a curfew and martial law in place, there are major restrictions on movement, and that is why they're permitting no one to come anywhere close to the borders, where heavy exchange of fire is still going on. But what is it that Ukraine requires? Ukraine says we do not want just lip service or sympathy, empty words coming from Europe. What Ukraine requires is hard sanctions against Russia, in terms of sanctions against military generals, the president, the leadership, and also against their families. That's the only way they think that pressure can be mounted on Russia. They're also seeking air defense equipment to be able to protect their airspace. But is it even possible now with Russian jets flying overhead? We spoke to one member of parliament from Ukraine. Let's listen in.
What is the current situation? We're seeing images of damage and destruction in Kyiv. Your president says Russian forces have entered the city. Sofia.
I would say that officially Russian forces had not entered the city. We know about some groups that entered the city, but I think that every man or every woman in our city, including the members of the parliament, are going to do everything to neutralize them, or better to say, to kill all those who came to kill Ukrainians. These are diversion groups that are aimed to make different troubles. But if we talk about the army columns, there are no army columns in Kyiv. We know about the tank column and another technique that is several dozens kilometers from Kyiv. But now our army is trying to fight them. As well, I've heard that you were talking about this big airport in which they want to settle the airborne forces. I would like to inform that this airport is not existing anymore. During the fights, the coverage of the line was totally destroyed. So it is not impossible to any Moscow plane to land at that point.
Yeah.
And that was one of the tasks of the Ukrainian army. In Kyiv right now, I'm almost in a bomb shelter. Therefore, in any minute, I can switch off. A few minutes ago, we've heard a heavy shelling, a heavy sounds, kind of bombing. But at the moment, we hope that this Ukrainian anti-aircraft system was working. As we know, at 4 a.m. in the morning, there was attack over Kyiv, but our anti-aircraft system protected Kyiv citizens, and this Moscovian aircraft was destroyed. Also, we know that several cities and towns that yesterday were taken over by Moscow Federation,
yes,
they even managed to put Moscow flags over there. They were liberated by Ukrainian army. I may say that yesterday it was a big first shock about the scale of attack, especially on military airports and military storages. But now our army is getting ready. And of course, I would say yesterday, I was shocked with the number of people first who came to sign a contract to territorial defense forces, and they got weapon immediately, and not only automatic weapon, but much more important stuff to kill the enemy. But also I was shocked with the number of people who
yes,
came to give their blood to the hospitals, as we have quite many wounded people right now. And that is one of my requests to you as a friendly country, the country that cares, and the country whose pharmacy is on the highest top level. We would need a lot of medicine, a lot of blood clots, a lot of blood-stopping stuff, a lot of antibiotics,
yes,
to save our soldiers and civilians who today protect Ukraine. I know that from many countries of the world, already we get humanitarian aid, and they are already approaching Ukrainian border, especially from the Polish side. Also, I would like having the possibility to thank all those people who came to Moscow embassies and who protested against Moscow invasion in Ukraine. We have to understand that Ukraine needs not only weapon support, not only solidarity in this defense war, but also we need psychological warfare against Moscow Federation. And we need also to punish aggressor, because if several years ago it was on the world level kind of a discussion who is guilty, who belongs to him, now we definitely see that Moscow army as an enemy invaded Ukraine, invaded from all the sides, and like the worst possible terrorists, they are killing peaceful Ukrainians who want just to live on their own land. I know that India knows what is the fight for independence. And I ask all the Indian politicians not to count on some kind of Moscow interest, but to take into account the necessity to protect human rights, peace, and sovereignty of democratic countries. We really count on you.
A very emotional appeal there being made by the Member of Parliament from Ukraine in that exclusive conversation with India Today's executive editor Shiv Arur. The requirement in Ukraine is not just of weapons, defensive weapons and anti-aircraft weapons, but also medicines, India's pharmacy to the world. And that is why they're seeking Indian assistance in pharmacy and also pressure on Russia. Now, let me also move on to the other big story. In this multi-pronged offensive mounted by the Russian forces on Ukraine, Chernobyl was targeted. Remember, Chernobyl was the site of that nuclear disaster in 1986. Russia has once again taken control of the nuclear power plant. The declaration about this was made by the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. He's informed the United Nations about it. He's informed several world powers about it. And this has led to tens and thousands of people vacating that entire region.
Ukrainian forces battled Russian invaders on 3 sides Thursday after Moscow launched the biggest attack on a European state since World War II, prompting tens of thousands of people to flee their homes. The Russian invasion came by land, sea, and air in a massive show of force. U.S. officials warned Russian forces were making advances on Ukraine's capital of Kyiv, and the Ukrainian prime minister said Russia had captured the former nuclear power plant at Chernobyl. Heavy fire was exchanged in the northeast and in the seaside city of Odessa in the south. The assault brought a calamitous end to weeks of fruitless diplomatic efforts by the West, with Russian President Vladimir Putin declaring war in a pre-dawn televised address. He said he had ordered a special military operation to protect people, including Russian citizens, subjected to, quote, genocide in Ukraine, an accusation the West calls baseless propaganda. U.S. President Joe Biden blasted Russia's aggression from the White House, calling it a war without cause.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
Thursday began with missiles raining down on targets across Ukraine and reports of troops pouring across the borders from Russia and Belarus. President Volodymyr Zelensky called on Ukrainians to defend their country and said arms would be given to anyone prepared to fight.
What we have heard today are not just missile blasts, fighting, and the rumble of aircraft. This is the sound of a new Iron Curtain, which has come down and is closing Russia off from the civilized world.
The UN Refugee Agency said an estimated 100,000 Ukrainians had fled their homes. Some took shelter in train stations. Others tried to get out. The highway heading west out of Kyiv was choked with traffic across 5 lanes as residents fled, fearful of bombings while stuck in their car. Biden has ruled out sending U.S. troops to defend Ukraine, but Washington has reinforced its NATO allies in the region with extra troops and planes as countries across the West impose tough sanctions. Putin's endgame remains unclear. He said he did not plan a military occupation, only to disarm Ukraine and purge it of nationalists.
And this fear and uncertainty continues to stalk the streets, not just of the national capital, Kyiv, here in Ukraine, but almost across the country, amidst reports that the Russian forces are now fast advancing from multiple flanks to converge at the capital, Kyiv. We will continue to get you the latest reports from Ground Zero, but that is all I have for you on this special broadcast. Cameraman Pawan Kumar now joins me on this special show. Pawan Kumar and I have been reporting from Ground Zero. We bring you this story. This is cameraman Pawan Kumar, and he has relentlessly been reporting from Ground Zero, doing the camera work with me here in almost sub-zero temperatures here in Mariupol in eastern Ukraine. A quick break. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.